Hello everyone, welcome to another live match with the Average Angler. Today we are at Shiplate Farm Fishery and we're on the Westpool lake, which is only the second time I've ever fished this lake. There's two matches on here today. There's one on the main lake, which is the lake you can see just past there, and that's one match within itself, and then there's another match which is between this pool and another pool which is further in that direction called Hawthorns. So we've two pools fishing against one another. No silvers money to collect today. We're on a cost cutter challenge. So it's only a cost cutter match today, but it's really busy because it's the Thursday before bank holiday weekend for Easter, and so there's loads and loads of people fishing it, so it's really full. We're not sure. I took a bit of advice from Tom about how to fish this, and he's advised me to start just dobbing across there with maggots. So that's what we're going to do. We're over there and we're going to dob around with the maggot shallow, see what we can nick for an hour or so, see what's about. And we've got edge lines here and down to this clump of grass here, and one tight in, one down the slope, and here I've got one tight in, one down the slope, and then over here there's like a metal cage. You can just about see the top of it. It's a nice flat spot out there, so also got a rig for that as well. So that's kind of for when I'm thinking about putting bait in, but I'm hoping to catch fish just dobbing around with a maggot. I know that seems like a winter tactic, but on pegs like this where there's a lot of fish already here, you can just catch them and they just sit around. There's like an entrance here between that lake and this lake, and they seem to sit around here sometimes. I'm hoping if they're not at this end of the lake, then they'll be at the other end of the lake. I've drawn a good peg today because the two ends of this lake are the best pegs, so hopefully I'm in with a good chance. Let's see how we get on. Right guys, 1 hour update. I started the first 45 minutes of the match fishing at half depth for cross with just a maggot, and I was been informed that there's a lot of fish living in this peg and you can just catch them like that, or that's how they have been catching them. But it didn't work for me, so I hadn't made a decision to feed. Now across from me there is like a grate which covers the connection between this lake and the main lake, and I plumbed up here at the start, and it's a nice flat area, nice big flat area, so, and about 3 foot deep. So I decided I was going to fish there, and I was going to put some micros in and just fish corn on the hook and just look to try and catch better stamp fish and just wait, you know, tempt one carp at a time. That was my idea. Today, I've got to remember that today, while silvers do count towards your overall weight, there isn't a separate payout for the top silvers weight, so there's no point focusing on them. You've got to try and catch carp because that's where your weight's going to come from. Now, I didn't have any micros set up with me because I hadn't planned to fish this way at the start of the match. This was kind of a mid-match replan or an early match replan. So I managed to find some aniseed flavoured micros in my bag from the pellet guys, so I used those. But obviously they weren't soaked, so I fed them through a toss pot and just dunked the toss pot every time I shipped out. This is a good little tip because A, it stops them from spilling out the pot, because when they're dry they bounce around. But when they've got the moisture on them, the surface tension holds them together. And also, if you've ever fed dry micros, some of them float, but once you've dunked them in the water, they'll all sink. And I was actually wondering whether or not any fish would come to the harder pellets, or maybe just the carp would come to them, so maybe it would work in my favour. What actually happened is at this point where you've just joined me, we've got two skimmers in the bag already, and that's what we've caught. We have two skimmers over this line. What I did notice early was that I was only getting bites sort of 2 minutes after a feed, otherwise I had to refeed. So I'd tap those pellets in, and then I'd have to put the corn right over the top of them and lower it down slowly into the feed area, and I'd get a bite within sort of 1 or 2 minutes, and if I didn't, I had to refeed. There were signs of carp after a while, and that was quite frustrating, and they were definitely shallow. They weren't on the bottom and they were giving me liners. Very frustrating because I'd fished for them, so they were there, but I just couldn't catch them. And it was a sunny day, and it seems that it must have brought these carp up, but they weren't being easy to catch. They weren't playing the game. They were doing that thing that carp do, where they just swim around and not really interested for quite a long period of time. But at this point, I was happy just to keep taking these skimmers and get some weight in the net, as I was, you know, already a bit behind. And I just hope that if I kept feeding this spot, I've had a response now, maybe I'll catch some carp as the match progresses on. So here we are, hour and 45 minutes in. This is the second carp that I've had. I've hooked it over the pellets. I've hooked it on meat on the hook. I made a switch to meat on the hook because of the signs. I was getting lots of signs of fish, like I said, shallow, and I thought perhaps if I have a slow falling bait coming through, I'll pick up the odd carp. And what I found was the skimmers loved it just as much as well. So it wasn't really a negative. It was actually probably slightly better than the corn.
The last skimmer I had was I had a last skimmer on the bottom and on a bit of meat, and he was the best one I've had all day. And they're just ticking me over and adding weight to the net. So this is a much better fish. This one, 5 or 6 pounder. This one, maybe even a bit bigger than that. He's a really nice fish. Just taking my time because it's taking me an hour and 3/4 to hook something decent. So I don't see the point in rushing it in the net, losing it. There he is. Got him. Let's say he might go 5M. Really hard to get the net up in the area.
And a couple of minutes later, I hooked this carp. When I've hooked him, he's really kept himself tight to the far bank, and I'm thinking, oh, this one's foul hooked. Or it's a big fish perhaps, but as it turns out, it was neither. It was just a 3 pounder, and it wasn't foul hooked.
A little 3 pounder. You are 2 carp on that little update. That was handy, wasn't it? Don't think I've been like this for the whole 2 hours. Literally, that is 2. You've seen 2 of the 3 carp that I have. I've got 2 that size and 1 that bigger one, that slightly bigger one that you just saw as well.
Right, we're 2.5 hours in now, and I've got another carp on. Things have been slow between now and the previous update, sort of 45 minutes ago. Other than the odd skimmer. Now, a lot of carp were starting to show themselves shallow, and I could see them on the far bank, and I could see them moving through fast across halfway in front of me. And I was sitting there thinking, oh, I'm tempted to, maybe make up a mugging rig and have a go for these. But then I've hooked this fish, and this is the best fish that I've had of the day so far. So it's encouraging me to sort of stay on this line.
It's a really good fish. He's gone in. There he is. This is a nice fish. I think.
At this point now, I've got a 17 pounder carp and maybe 8 or 10 pounder silvers. And I've been switching hook baits for the last sort of 45 minutes, but definitely found that the meat, as I said earlier, the meat is definitely the best hook bait today. But I am still quite a bit behind some of the guys to my right. Here we are now, 3.5 hour update. I've got another little carp on. It hasn't been hectic. I've had a little go at mugging where the cameras were off, failed. I've had a try at shallow over the spot where I'm fishing now. I thought I'd come up half depth, keep feeding it the same, see whether I can catch some of these fish that are giving me these indications. Failed. I've gone a couple of inches over depth, managed to hook a skimmer straight away, thought, oh, we're onto something now, and then I've hooked this fish, which you can now see is foul hooked. I can't control him. He's running down the left hand edge.
He's woke up now. He's going down this edge. Whoa! Something's got into him. It's got into him there. He really got into him. So he got a line wrapped around him, and so he couldn't turn him or something. Whoa! This is weird. Must have been foul up, that fish. First one I've lost.
There we are. The float's totally wrecked. I think we should go back to proper depth. I think fishing over depth has caused this problem. Right, we're 4 hours into a 6 hour match now. I've just had a little run of foul hookers, and I've gone back out with a plummet just to make sure everything's right. And it's right. I'm plumbed up to the bottom of the float body just like I like to be. And I'm getting weird indications. The float's not settling right, and my head's in a bit of a mess at this point. And the swim should be getting better and better, and it's just not. So I suspect that there's perhaps some branches in the water or in the peg. Maybe a couple of the fish that I've hooked or foul hooked have ran into some of these branches and moved them around, because I have picked up odd branches and snags throughout the match. I have been hooking and dragging them back. So what I've done is I've moved a few inches to the right, and I'm just trying to start the swim again, but not too far away, and just hoping that I can bring the swim back. It's definitely, you know, the match is definitely getting tougher for me rather than better, and I would expect at this point for things to be getting stronger, and I'm still way behind the rest of the field. Well, we're into the final 30 minutes now, and I've just moved down onto this line to my left. It looks like it's in the edge, but it's actually still in the deep water. If I come up, the edge is horrible. I've just landed a small carp, which is actually the first fish, not just the first carp, but the first fish that I've had for over an hour. I'm looking around, and it looks like everybody else is finishing really strongly, but my peg's just fizzled out. I don't know whether or not the fish have moved out of this corner. I doubt that. I just feel like I must have not got it right today. I've done something wrong. And I've just come down to this left-hand edge here, and I've just started putting 3 or 4 pieces of meat and just trying to fish over it, and I've had the one carp doing it.
Where I put the edge mix in. Another fish came in shallow, nudging the float, but eventually the float did dip, and I've hooked a little 2-pounder. Still going to be too little too late, because there's people down here tomorrow. I mean, still bagging up now. You're just absolutely emptying it. You're going to have hundreds of pounds, and I've got 25. I'm supposed to be on a good peg. It's very frustrating.
But as you can see, this line didn't produce any more fish, so I was forced to go back onto my longer line. Tench! Get in the tenches. And then, with a few minutes to go, one last carp. And that is literally all the fish that I've managed in the last half an hour of the match. And like I say, I was hoping for a good finish to try and catch up the guys to my right, and some of them have caught really well short, and I have to go and speak to them and see what they've done that I haven't done. So I finished up all but last on the lake on the day. If you look at the weigh sheet there, the numbers that say W after them, that's the Westpool, and the numbers that say H after them, that is the Hawthorns pool. We're in the same match. There's 2 pools on the same match. But if you look at all the ones that say W on them, in my lake, I've only beaten the did not weighs. So it's been a real grueler for me. I've weighed 31 pound and 4 ounces of carp, and I've weighed 17 pound and 2 ounces of silvers, for a total of 48 pound and 6 ounces. I feel like I've definitely blown a flyer today. I spoke to Mark, who was on the peg next to me on peg 13. He caught really well late on, sort of turned his match around a bit and caught up to the pack. And I spoke to him, and it turns out that he's fed meat on that short line, but he's fed it much more aggressively than me. He's got through quite a lot more meat than I did, so perhaps I've not been aggressive enough. Still kind of too much in winter mode. Carp must have wanted a bit more feed today than perhaps I was giving them. Maybe that would have been better for me. So how does that put us on the cost cutter challenge? Well, we've got £90 left in the kitty now after 5 matches. So effectively, we fished 5 matches for a tenner. Well, in peg fees anyway, so that's not too bad. Let's just see if we can keep things going and get some wins under our belt. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you again soon.